So what we will kind of try to cover, the mobile data collection is a huge, like a chapter, and there are a lot of different subtopics. And I will mostly focus on sort of the smartphones or tablets later on, because that's where we can do very similar survey to what we do on a paper. But I will briefly mention also the other kind of ways of collecting data through mobile phones. And I also will talk a little bit about the beneficiary privacy. Here, much more, because with the use of technology, it's very connected, how we may actually challenge the beneficiary privacy and rights without even knowing about it. So that's what I will touch base on as well. And then you will have an opportunity to try it. And I have to disclose, I will show you only one tool, because the time is so condensed. It's a tool which is it's not connected to us in any ways. It's just a tool that we use most often, and I will describe why later on. But I should be like showing you more tools so you could really make your own choice. But I kind of decided this one may be the most useful for you in terms of like the variety of situations that you could use it in. But I will be talking about different tools as well. OK, so again, let's look at the common mistakes that we see quite often in the field. The data is collected by paper, even where it would be much more efficient through some kind of technology. As I mentioned to a few of you, now we work a lot with the social services in Canada, different kind of social organizations. The amount of data that they collect through paper and process it, and somebody needs to input it, it's just painful to even see it, because they could easily run that through different devices and would be really safe, really efficient. Also, when I came to the field, there was this tool for, the guy, the M&E officer, when we were like evaluating project, he had the shelves from there to here with all the backup data, like all the surveys, all the little pre-test, post-tests, everything was like in a folders like that. And then when we were doing the evaluation, he was like, yeah, here is it. You guys can start from there and come to here. And we had like 6 days to do it. Nothing in computers, everything on the paper. They just analyze it in the paper and then like put the final numbers in the reports. So there's no way of verifying that those numbers ever can be like actually true. So in many situations, mobile data collection is a great tool and could be used. For mobile, the next mistake is the exact opposite. The mobile collection is forced on every project, even when it's not appropriate. Like sometimes when you are working with victims of violence or domestic violence, you may just want to have a different tool, or it may be the right tool, as I kind of mentioned in the previous sessions. It really depends, and we will try to cover it. What are the situations when mobile data collection may not be the appropriate method? As I said before, the beneficiary respondents' rights and privacy are being challenged. And I will kind of mention several things how that can happen. But that's also a really common mistake that we see. Collecting too much data as a result of easier data collection. You know, when the survey, and for those who took it, you have no idea how long the survey is. You see it on the screen one by one, or you may have a couple of questions. But you don't actually see, when I showed you all those papers, you are like horrified. But when it comes to the device, oh, it's just easy. It's just like question by question. So we tend, and also it's easy to collect pretty much anything about people. Like we can collect so many data, like coordinates and temperature in the room. We can take photo of the beneficiary and photo of the kitchen, and we can collect pretty much anything we want with the devices. If you can buy like a different plugins that can collect a weight or a MUAC or just whatever you can imagine can be plugged in. But that actually kind of encourages us to collect more and more data. And do we really need it? That's the question. And then the most common mistake is that you still repeat the same mistakes as you would do with any other data collection. It doesn't necessarily mean that the mistakes disappear, like that your survey is not relevant and your indicators are not right and all that. So it's just kind of good to remind us, because sometimes we do this presentation like as a standalone, and it's good to remind that you still have all those other mistakes that you should fix before you even touch the device. There are situations when we should use paper. Sometimes in a humanitarian setting, or when you have to be very fast with a survey, when you need to do a rapid assessment, or when you need to be really fast, and you haven't planned ahead of time, so you don't have the devices procured, you don't have the people that they actually know how to use it, it may take you more time to set it up, the system, than just like quickly print a paper questionnaire. I'm not talking about the analysis, just like to quickly run the survey maybe immediately after some disaster happened. So in some disaster context, paper may be still better tool, unless the organization really plans ahead and has all that like kind of in place, because then they may be actually much faster with the devices. We need to look at many different aspects, like is the phone culturally sort of accepted? Is any sort of electronics accepted? There may still be cultures around the world that they don't accept any sort of electronic devices in the community. So we need to look at that. Is it something that if we bring these like expensive devices that we are going to kind of harm the values or the spirits or whatever of the community? If you have a huge amount of people, if let's say it's a really large scale project looking at every single health facility in Canada, it may take you a long time to get it started, because you need to kind of find the people with devices or find the devices, distribute them. You need to do the training for everybody. It may be just faster emailing the questionnaire in paper. People print it on their own sites and do it. So if it's a really large area and you have lots of points of data collection, it may be, again, faster to do the paper. Not more efficient, faster. So in some ways, we have to kind of balance like the speed, the appropriateness, and all that. If you need to collect, like here on the paper, you really see a good example. If you need to like make some drawings and like some more in-depth data, again, or if you need to actually collect longer text, the mobile device may not be the right tool, unless you, for example, record video or take pictures and do those kind of things. But if it's like the more like traditional survey, the paper may be actually better, because you can really do like much more. Or as I mentioned before, the ideal may be the combination. You can actually combine both methods together, collecting some data on the phone and some data on the paper. You need to charge the devices. So if you are working in an environment where you cannot charge it, cannot use the solar panels to charge it, cannot use the external batteries to charge it, it may just be not suitable for you. Because all these devices become just a weight in your hand or pocket unless you have external source. But now you can buy like these kind of external battery packs for, I don't know, $20, and that can charge the phone twice. So that means you can charge the phone once and then plus twice from here, so you can run maybe 3 days in a field, which is sometimes good enough to actually run it. So we have alternatives, but we still have locations where we cannot recharge the phones after a certain period of time, and so we do rather run the paper survey. Any questions so far? Good. But maybe I will go back to one thing. But when we actually want to use phones, when we need to collect some type of data that we cannot just record easily on a paper, like coordinates. It's really hard recording coordinates on paper. You can give people GPS devices and then they write down, but I can tell you the mistakes that comes from that. We never were able really to use that data because it just doesn't work. So if you want that, if it's important to you for some reason, collecting the coordinates, then the phone may be just a better solution. If you can, like, what is the beauty of the mobile devices is that you can actually design the service somewhere and then just send it to all the phones, all the devices around the world. And they just have to somehow, it depends on the tool, like download the service to the device. So that's amazing. If you want to have more centralized approach to your data collection, you want to design maybe unified survey across all countries in the world, you can actually do it very easily. You just have to figure out how people procure the devices somewhere locally, and that's how it works. It works really easy. Okay, so just the kind of the key difference where we see there is a very similar approach in the survey design. You still do very similar things. Maybe with the mobile phone, you need to be a little bit more. You need to be more specific about like what type of question is it and those kind of things, because in the paper survey you just design it graphically, but here you need to actually tell to the tool like, is it a single choice or multiple choice? But at the same time, designing the paper survey, you have to kind of think about the graphics. So you have to put it in a nice place so it's understandable, while the tool kind of does it for you. It just plug the question and it kind of makes it visually nice. Then you collect the data, very similar. Depends like what kind of tool you decide to use, but it's very similar with the phones and the survey. And then you go to your analysis, while for the paper you have the data entry. And that's the time when sometimes it takes months to actually enter all the data in computer. So you can process it for your analysis. And that's where we lose the sort of the data accuracy and integrity. And that is a huge advantage that you don't have that period of time with the mobile devices. You have it right there available. And then hopefully it should go to some report and feedback to community and everything what we talked about before.
Yeah, could you just clarify, do you have to have a smartphone for this though?
Yes, that's what
okay.
I will clarify it. Okay,
to answer the survey,
I don't actually have a slide for it. It's a different presentation. But yes, maybe I can talk about it. So you have, basically when we are talking about mobile data collection, you have two options. You can either use a smartphone or tablets or these kind of things, or you can use any regular phone which can send text messaging. Now, with the smartphones and tablets, you can do both. You can use text messaging, or you can use a survey, which looks very similar to the paper survey. In fact, I can have like a survey like that. Just I know you can see it, but it's like a very simple survey. And I can have it exactly looking like that on the screen. And it's totally similar, and I use it in the same way. If I want to use, so in that regard, I actually have usually somebody who is working with the device around the households collecting the data. Either the people actually do it by themselves, or the enumerator kind of inputs the data in. That's when you use the smartphones and tablets and the smart devices. If you want to use the regular old-style phones, you have a little bit different option. You can communicate with your audience through text messaging. So basically how it works, you send to your, first you need to collect the numbers. So you need to know the phone numbers for all your respondents. So you collect the phone numbers, or somehow people register to you through a text message or something like that. WhatsApp, but WhatsApp can be only used for these again, like the smartphones, I think. But what we usually do, like when we do the community sensitization, we post like a big poster of the number that we like assign to the project, and then everybody who is part of the project sends a text message to that number, and in that way we have all people like they say this is me, my name, and maybe like a text message. They just send it to the number. In that way, we have now registered all people in pretty simple, quite like a fast way. This is one way to do it. You can also go like around maybe some community meetings and gather the numbers in some different way. And now you can design your survey, but the survey must be much simpler. Yeah, it might be like 3-5 questions. Maybe you can ask the question after every training, after every time you delivered some distribution, some content. And so you send text message. Have you received training in hygiene and sanitation in the past, I don't know, 10 days? And the person responds, yes, I did. And so you can send a next text message. Have you enjoyed the training? Yes, I did. OK, great. What have you learned? And then you can maybe give them a few options.
This is sort of silly, but is that the number that you post, is there some way to like prepay messages that are texted?
It's exactly what I want to kind of mention. That you can either do it with your phone, but you will be crazy. Like you will just become crazy after communicating. So you can actually set up some sort of third-party service, or sometimes the providers actually have these tools that you can use directly through the cell phone provider. And basically how it works, all the text messages come to your computer. You can even like get them in Excel, and they all come, so you can like very easily see your results, your like people and the responses.
But in some communities, for example, people might not be able to afford text messages. Or
Yeah.
That's not what you want to use the resources for.
That's exactly what I want to say. Like, you have the chance to actually, some providers will go for that because they see it, oh, it's a big like money for us coming. So they will set up for you that account, that number, that it's free for anybody to text it. Or even sometimes it can be call if you want that feature to be available as well. So they can set it up for you. Or there are other tools, like it's called, for example, Frontline SMS. And there are many other similar tools. This is just like one of them. On the other hand, it's just a little kind of idea from me, but it may not be a bad idea for people. The text message is usually very cheap, and it's also showing some sort of commitment from people that they want to be part of it. So they are investing their own resources. So I don't know, it's controversial, and you need to kind of balance it. But at the same time, if people pay for it, it's also showing that they are really interested maybe being part of it. Not necessarily for the whole survey, but at least for the registration, it seems to me, yeah, maybe, I don't know. So basically you have these two options. Using the smartphones, it looks very similar like the regular survey on the paper. You use the enumerators to go around to pass the devices from one to one. Or you may have like your field staff doing ongoing like data collection, maybe through community meetings. They will have some survey that they will like put the answers on. But it looks very similar like paper survey. Or you can have the text messaging when you have to be much more simple, just basically few questions, few answers, and you can kind of communicate it. Or it may be just one question with like 3 sub-questions in it, and then the person answers first yes, second no, something like that. It's possible, you just have to test. There are many ways how to like structure and the Frontline SMS helps you. That's why I like the tool, because it helps you to kind of structure your interview or your survey. But it's really for simple, like one-time activities that you want to collect the data for. That's the absolutely great like example where you can use it, and I would use the smart device for that. Because you have a small number of devices that you need to buy. It's just like 8 people. Yeah. And you give them the device, you can set up the survey, they come to the internet, they download the survey, and then the survey is there. And the survey can be survey as a question, but it can also be like observation-based, like how many children they had that day in a school, or, you know, it can be, and they just plug in the number. And then basically whenever they can collect the data as they are in the field, they come back to the office and hit the upload button, it all comes to your one account. And then you can distinguish which came from each district, like through the device name. Yeah. So you have all in one Excel sheet, but you can still distinguish from like which source it comes.
And do they need internet while they're
no.
in the community, or just?
No. For the data collection, you don't. It depends on which tool you select. But for the tools that I will be showing you today, you don't need internet for the data collection. You only need internet when you are like downloading the survey to your phone. So let's say I do it now here, and then I go to the streets and I can collect the data. When I come back, and I can collect unlimited because these devices have so much like power and so much memory that I can come back to the office a week later and just like connect it to the Wi-Fi, hit the upload button, and it comes to you. Okay, it comes with a risk.
Yeah, if you lose your phone.
If you lose your phone, you lose your data. Like when we do the baseline, we actually try to encourage to upload the results at the end of each day. Even sometimes it's really tricky and almost impossible, but we want that because if you lose that phone, you only lose 5, 7, 10 results.
Can you upload to an external device, or is it going to a particular firm-type server? Or?
Yeah, that depends on the tool. And again, I will maybe mention it once I show you the tools. But yeah, there are different ways. You can even upload data actually through cable. With some tools, you don't actually need to have internet. You can just plug it and upload it through the cable. It's possible as well. But I will go back now to the text messaging, because it also comes with a toll. You are losing the control over it. You are asking the provider to communicate directly with your beneficiaries, and that's or third party, and that's something where it's a little bit tricky, because like we see in so many countries that, like Kenya, Uganda, it's very common that, let's say there is a cash transfer through the text messaging, because now all these countries are running like e-wallet in your phone. So through text message, I can send you money. Like I can send a payment through text message, and then you can pay in the store through text messaging. So let's say there was a cash transfer for some sort of intervention. So we would do a cash transfers to a community for some reason. And then the next day they would receive text messages from like advertisers, like saying, oh, we know that you just recently received some money. Wouldn't you be interested buying so-and-so? And so now we know that the provider actually took the data of our beneficiaries and sell it to somebody else. And we had no control. We had an agreement about it, but we have no proof that that's what they have done it. So anytime you trust to any third party about your data, you are actually putting your beneficiaries in risk. And now I am saying it, we have our own tool, which I will just briefly show at the end, but we are also cloud. So I know that you have no idea what we do with the data. You can't prove it. You can't find a way how you would have to somehow track the results. Like I think we are very careful about how we use the data and where the servers are and everything. But whenever you use somebody out of your office, you have no idea. Okay? And then the second huge disadvantage using any mobile phone technology, you have no paper evidence. If you have a person who, for some stupid reason, didn't back up the files, and after the service expired, it's only on one computer now because it's not on the servers anymore. The computer dies. You come to the end of the project, and where's your data? Oh, you know, our computer died, and you don't have the paper to go back and like figure it out again. So it's a big disadvantage. You don't actually have the backup documents for it. So sometimes for like distribution, because you can also track activities, like how many people came to the training. In fact, you can give them a card with a barcode, and just like every time they come to the training, you just scan the barcodes, and it like kind of records the people who came to your activity. But you can do it for trainings, but with Canadian government, you cannot do it for distributions. You still have to have that fingerprint or signature that, like, as an approval that they actually got it.
I think you also run, even with paper, it can easily get lost. Or,
yeah, it's absolutely true. It's just something to kind of consider. You can rely on some sort of additional backup. But it has also a benefit because when you send the enumerators to do the survey, they carry out the questionnaires, and they can come to one household and say, okay, hey, you know, the guys just next door, they told me this, and look, this is the results. We experience that sometimes. With this device, it depends how you set it up in the tool, but like you can't. Like once you submit, like click the submit button, you cannot go back to the survey. So that means it also kind of like increases the privacy.
Can I just clarify that what you were saying about when you're doing a survey, say for Government of Canada, they require that the respondent provides a signature that they did?
No respondent, but for distributions, like if they receive some sort of something.
So the data then, anybody, if you were going to do it ethically, you could de-identify the respondent.
That's exactly, yes. And then I will mention with the beneficiary privacy, you have to keep separately, like you number the households and then just keep these two documents separately. But it's becoming a little bit tricky with the coordinates. If you do the interview in the household, now we have the GPS coordinates. And so it's almost the same like a name. So in a way, now we encourage our clients to take that information also away. So we can come back, and when we want to do some sort of analysis of in which area we have people with this like malnutrition, because there may be some reasons, and it's good to see it on a map, we do it like in a way that we decode it only on one computer which is not connected to the internet, and do that like aggregation, and then we can like upload it again back. Okay, is mobile data collection for you? So there are a few questions that we should be asking ourselves. Can we do it? I can tell you yes, everybody can do it. It's nothing that you need a sophisticated department. You don't need IT experts anymore. You can do it on your own. It's simple, but it may not be the right thing for you. So here are a few kind of questions. are the devices available on the local market? We used to bring, when we did the pilot in 2010, we used to bring the devices from Canada to the country. Stupid idea. Back then, there was no other option because we couldn't find the devices locally. But like, first device didn't work. We were done. Second, like, people didn't have idea what to do after the consultant left. So they just kind of were stuck with whatever information was remained. So just stupid idea. You can find today in every country around the world at least phones. So smartphones for cost between $150 to $250. So it's not a huge thing. It's not as super expensive. It depends how many devices you need, but around $100. In Asia, in Southeast Asia, you can find it for $50. Like a new smartphone device works well. Okay. Are the mobile phones used in the project area at all? If not, then I would be concerned. If even the simple phones are not used, I would be concerned bringing the new technology.
Is that, would you say, even with an enumerator doing it? Like if it was in a rural area that they didn't have smartphone technology?
You kind of have to maybe discuss it with the community and the team, because for some communities just using, like, let's say if you would go among the Amishes as or a similar kind of beliefs that they just don't want any technology on the ground, that may be the case. If sometimes when you work with the indigenous communities, like very indigenous in some areas, they just don't want any technology. So that would be kind of a concern. Otherwise, no, I think it's fine. However, like Somalia, you can't use mobile devices. For the security reasons, the community will feel very insecure if you bring mobile devices in. The reason is that they just don't trust like anybody and anything what is happening on the ground. And the government is also very sensitive about collecting data and bringing data from one side to another. So there may be kind of areas which are just not like as suitable for it. Is there the electricity, potentially internet, if you need to download, upload survey or something like that? So can you actually do it? Do you have the time for training? Because it needs, if you do it for the first time, you will need to be trained here in Canada, or like you need to kind of like design the training for your own, then you need to train your local team, and then they need to train the enumerator. So it maybe it's a little bit more complicated, maybe a little bit more time than if you just go with the paper. But on the other hand, I think it's worse because you save so much time on the data analysis. And this is actually the most important part. If your organization haven't tried, you need somebody to be enthusiastic about it and to like, okay, let's try it. We can do it. Let's just try it. If you don't have that person, everybody's like, oh no, this is not going to work. It won't work. Like it's that one person who is like pioneering, who downloads it on its own phone and his phone and just like plays with the survey and figures out the kind of issues that you may have. That person will push it through and you will actually be successful. So if you have that, and it doesn't need to be a technical expert, really, believe me. Sometimes it's a driver who is excited about the phone and can push it through, but you need that enthusiasm to do it. And anybody, any organization, any size with any budget can do mobile data collection. It just depends like how you design it and what tools you use and how to select the right app, because there are so many apps. So you want to kind of look at your budget. There are free solutions. Out of these, Tap and See cost like $5 for 3 months or something, like I would say almost free. Open Data Kit is completely free. Like you can download it, you can use it free, you can collect data free, you can analyze data free, completely free. And these are some pretty expensive, but like really great tools. So budget is a big concern. If you have no budget, you can use the staff's devices. If they have their own devices, they can still be collecting data if you trust that they can do it. So you can go with a completely free solution, but there is a cost to it. So usually if it's free, it will be more work for you to set it up. Like Open Data Kit is amazing, open source tool, but you need to really have some expertise to be able to set it up, because that's where you actually pay for the service that other people do it for you. So it's a great tool, it's free, but you need some expertise. With Tap and See, it's actually pretty straightforward, but it's also limited in like the way how the survey is structured. So you cannot do any like a skip any flow through the survey and those kind of things. But if it's a simple survey, it's a great tool to be used. Okay, some tools are paid or organized per survey. So for example, the Droid survey that we use, you pay for every survey you want to do for some period of time. So it's good to understand how many surveys do we need to run, and can we maybe wrap it as one survey? That's my tip with the Droid survey. They wouldn't be happy if I say it, but sometimes when we don't have a budget for it, we do like multiple surveys within one, and the first question is what survey you are running. And then based on it, it skips all the questions for the other surveys. So like, is it a survey with a household or with a teacher or with a church leader or whatever? And then you skip all the other questions. It's just a little way, like workaround if you don't have budget to actually pay all the surveys. Some tools are paid based on the number of respondents. So how many respondents? Are you talking about 1,000 people or hundreds or tens? So again, that's something to kind of consider before you actually start deciding which device you need. Number of devices, how many people will be collecting the data? Do you run like a little saving groups in like 150 villages and you want to equip each of them with some sort of data tool, some sort of device? So then probably you want to go for some cheap devices or maybe their own phones already existing. So you will have to look for the tool there. Or if you just have 10 enumerators, you can actually equip them with pretty much like any device and any tool because it won't be like as costly. The duration of the survey, again, some of the tools are paid based on the duration. So is it just one-time data collection baseline? Maybe 30 days will be enough for you to kind of collect it, download the data, and that's all you pay. Or sometimes you need to like have ongoing survey. We also learn, again, with the Droid survey, for the first project, we paid the whole period of the project, which was like 4 years, and we paid about $3,000 for that. It's really expensive. Then we learned that we could just pay 30 months for every time we collect the data, and it cost like $80. Yeah, so it's just learning. It's just, and we collected the data like 4 times over the period of project, 5 times. So it's just, and you can like recycle the survey what you used last time. So all that comes with some cost eventually. How like difficult, how complex your survey is? Do you need to do like the logic? Do you need to skip questions based on the answers? And how complicated is it? Language, are you just using one language or will you have it in multiple languages? That's again, some tools can accommodate multiple languages, some tools don't. So that depends. What type of data? Like, are you collecting pictures? Do you need the GPS coordinates, videos? Do you need like an open text, long text on it? And then the key question is what kind of devices? Because for some reason, people in Canada are so based on Apple devices, which are like 5 times or 6 times or 10 times the cost of like cheap Android devices in the field. So I still see it's the service design in Canada, and then in the field they collect it with like an iPad. It's just totally, to me, meaningless because the iPad is not any better than these cheap devices for the purpose of the survey. And then it's just so expensive and so vulnerable. If you send somebody with Apple to any community, if people a little bit are aware, that's the first thing which is going to disappear. While if you send somebody with a cheap phone that everybody can buy, like we usually get them back all. So I don't know, I'm not a real friend of Apple, which you probably can tell. But that's your business. It's good to decide because we really want to, we recommend buying them locally. Why? You can run to the local store and the guys will help to the local team. So you don't need to be involved in that because in many cases you just can't figure out and they will be able to do it because they sell them, they know the devices. So it's much better buying them locally. The only issue is with Open Data Kit because you have to run your own server for it. It's open source, you have 100% control over the data. It's also the most complex tool which allows you to do pretty much anything with the survey, but you have to set it up by yourself. All the other ones are working on the cloud. Or you can go kind of with a halfway solution. You can find a person or a company which provides you with the solution of Open Data Kit, but they do the setting up for you, which you pay as a service. But then everything is free, but they just set up for you the server, or they can host the data or something like that. Okay.
So the other ones, can you take the data down once you
Yeah.
and you can remove it from their server?
Yes, exactly. That's what we usually do. Like we know how Droid survey works. We did like audit for them, and we kind of understand how they work. And it seems to me quite fair. But you need to do your own like a security screening. But with the other ones, like Tap and See, I would say is the least protected. It's very online, and you just have no idea how they use the data. With Open Data Kit, it's you who owns it, so it's really good. Point Mapper is really interesting. It's done by Plan International, with like partnership with some other NGOs. It has amazing tools, but it's pretty expensive. But it's really like it's the data collection, data analysis, reporting tool all in one. Interesting tool. Sorry. These two are for Apple devices. GIS is when you want to do some more like surveying of the area, like you are taking, let's say, sizes of gardens or farms of beneficiaries, or something like more like, or if you want to project your wells on a map or something like that, when you do more geographic surveying, it's a great tool. And Ethnocoder is more for a qualitative data collection, like pictures, stories, videos, long text, but unfortunately it's a good tool, but it's only for Apple. Okay, just some few examples or how you can use the technology in M&E. So we talked now a little bit about the mobile data collection. We'll talk about it a little more. You can use great tools for like reporting. It can make automated reports and aggregated data and like the different visualization and all that. That's where like our tool Kinaki would fit in as well. And then you can actually use these devices for providing the feedback to the community, where I see is the huge potential, and we still don't know yet how to use it properly, like how to use these devices to give the feedback, to bring the data back, and we need to figure it out, and probably this year will be a kind of breaking point for it. For like the whole international community, I mean, we need to learn how to use the technology to bring the data back to the community. Yes, there are new risks. I already mentioned some of them. So we have photos and coordinates, which can totally challenge the beneficiary privacy. I would be very careful collecting any photos. If it's a photo of the household members, community, you need to have a consent for that. So be careful about like putting photos as one of the, because in a lot of the tools you just put it as a question. One question is the take photo. So be careful about using that. The same with coordinates. Do you actually really need the coordinates? Are you going to use that? If not, I wouldn't collect it, because it's just a bother for you. If you think it may be really good for some analysis, I would go for it. But then kind of separate it from the rest of the data. Temptation collecting too much data, we kind of already covered that before. Using the third-party providers. Again, I already mentioned about that, how risky it can be, and you just have no control. And any contract is, believe me, it's for nothing. It's the same like you mentioned Google. You have absolutely no idea how the data is used. It's like any cloud system, unless you have control and you understand how it works, it's just like, and I don't want to scare you, but that's the reality. We just have to count with it, and we have to think that everything what is put in a cloud is a public data. If you don't want to make it public, then you have to find a way how to like anonymize it. Yes, and the limited backup solution, because we don't have the paper, so we need to make sure that we do backup the data. Like that the data is not on one computer only, that at least you use some backup solutions and maybe backup to like a secured cloud, which is encrypted so nobody can actually touch your data. These are just flipped kind of into the practical things. Again, we are back to the 30 minutes interview. It doesn't matter which tool you use, it's still the same 30 minutes. There are like clouds which they they kind of promise you that every data you put on, they encrypted it on your computer, then it's encrypted all the time, and then when you download it, it's like decrypted again on your computer. But at the same time, they are saying, they are giving you very huge amount of space, and they are saying, oh, if somebody uploads like 2, say, movies, we kind of merge them and we store it only once. Isn't it kind of strange? They tell you that they encrypt every your content on your computer, so they don't have access to it. And now they tell you that if it's the same movie, or same like type of data, they actually aggregate it together across users. And I just am like, no. And it's some of the big actually cloud providers do that. So that's a pretty like a challenging statement. I think it's actually contradicting what they say they do. Yeah, and these are all the issues that we covered all across the 3 previous sessions are still there. So we are not addressing many of those issues with just using the mobile technology. We just maybe hide them, but they still are there. So we still need to keep an eye on all those other things. OK, and just one thing that I wanted to kind of talk about is, and it's not really related to mobile data collection, it's related to any data collection. You need to think how you are going to analyze it before you even start collecting the data. Because as you can see in behind, this is kind of like an Excel which comes from one of the two. It's really complex. You have so many columns, and now you have to like do your like analysis. And that's actually the reason why we kind of came with the idea of creating our own tool for data analysis. Because we were using Excel, and I think it's a great tool. I think Excel is actually the best tool that was ever invented for any data analysis. But it has the issue that you need to know how to do it. And whoever is doing the analysis needs to have like deep understanding of Excel and like how to bring it all together. And actually, now I am looking back on the 12 my years in international development, and I don't know how, like the results we had, I just don't trust them anymore. Because I don't think that any results we used in any report were actually relevant and like true, based on the looking back into the Excel and the skills that I have and my colleagues have in Excel. So we were looking around and trying to figure out like what we could use. We looked at different like access databases and different tools from different organizations, and couldn't find anything that would work with our partners. It would be easy that anybody can use it and like usable in a field, made some sort of automated reporting, and made the access to the data easy. So you kind of can click and understand, like get some basic like overview, basic charts and stuff. So we decided to go our own way and developed our own tool. But I don't want you to, this is not an advertisement, so just if you are interested, you can let me know and we can like talk about it. But basically that's it. Now we just, there are some resources, but I put them for you. Actually, one resource I want to point out, this one. The mobile-based technology for monitoring and evaluation. It's a step-by-step guide to guide you through the process of like mobile data and how you can do it. And you can do it, believe me.
We're going to get copies of this, right?
You will get this. Yeah, you will get it in the slides. So it's a great tool, and I think either I give it to you or you can just download it from there. But I think I actually uploaded it there as well. OK. So now what I would like to do is a little bit of practice. So I selected the Droid survey. It's actually not called anymore Droid survey. They renamed it just recently. It's called Harvest Your Data now. So I decided to use that one. Why? Because first of all, we have the most like hands-on experience with it. We kind of see, as I said, we trust them in the way how they like deal with the data, because we visited the office and we have some kind of nice relationship with them. The tool gives you opportunity to do a simple survey or a complicated survey. It costs about that $80 per month. So if you multiply the months for one survey, but you have unlimited number of respondents for it, I think, or like 3,000 or 6,000 respondents, something like that. So it's really big. So It's not the best tool, but I think it's if I look at the combination of the price, the reliability, and like the type of survey that you can do, I think it's one of the most like efficient tool that we used so far. It has a big challenge when you try to set up the survey flow. It's quite a brain exercise to do it, because you can only skip like for each question you can decide per answer where you want to skip. So sometimes when you run your survey and you want to go like questions for women, questions for men, and then coming back, it's really hard. Like if you run two independent, like you can do it underneath, but if you have similar questions that you want to ask both of them, but they need to be a little bit customized for each, then it's kind of hard to bring them back. It is possible, but you have to really spend a lot of time moving the questions like up and down and trying to figure out how to do it. But if your survey is not that complicated, it's a really good tool.